Let me tell you something right now. Your entire life can change in a single moment. When you finally decide to shift the way you think, everything starts with your mindset, not your background, not your resources, not the economy, not the people around you. It's the way you think, the way you perceive challenges, the way you interpret pain, and the way you respond to opportunity. Most people live their lives reacting instead of creating. They say, I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll feel confident when I make more money. I'll finally feel enough when I have that relationship. And that mindset keeps them trapped in a cycle of waiting, hoping, and wishing. But the truth is, nothing changes until you change. The shift happens when you realize you are not the victim of your circumstances. You are the creator of your future. That's the difference between those who live average and those who create extraordinary. The shift is from life is happening to me to life is happening for me. Imagine that. What if every obstacle you've ever faced wasn't punishment, but preparation? What if every setback wasn't there to break you, but to build you? The moment you adopt this mindset, the game changes. Fear doesn't paralyze you anymore. It fuels you. Failure doesn't define you. It refines you. Pain doesn't make you bitter. It makes you stronger. That's the shift. Think about it. Every great leader, every visionary, every person who has transformed their life had to make that shift. They had to stop waiting for permission and start giving themselves permission. They had to stop asking, why me? And start declaring, try me. They had to stop thinking small and start thinking limitless. This is not about positive thinking. It's about powerful thinking. It's about conditioning your mind to see possibility where others see problems. It's about mastering your emotions instead of letting them master you. It's about realizing that success isn't about resources. It's about resourcefulness. The moment you shift your mindset, your standards rise. You stop tolerating mediocrity. You stop settling for excuses. You stop blaming your past and you start creating your future. You raise the bar on what you expect from yourself. And suddenly, opportunities that you couldn't even see before become crystal clear because now your mind is tuned to possibility instead of limitation. Here's the truth. Nothing external will ever change until the internal does. You can have the strategy, the plan, the blueprint, but if your mindset is stuck, none of it works. But when your mindset expands, everything else follows. So let me ask you, are you ready to make the shift? Are you ready to stop living on autopilot and start living by design? Are you ready to stop waiting for change and start being the change? Because once you make this shift, once you decide that your past does not equal your future, once you step into the power of ownership, everything changes. Most people live their entire lives believing that they are victims of circumstance, prisoners of luck, bound by what others did to them or didn't do for them. And because of this belief, they never step into their true potential. They tell themselves stories like, I can't succeed because my parents didn't support me, or I can't change because the world is unfair, or I can't grow because I don't have the right connections, the right education, the right resources. And every time they repeat that story, they chain themselves to a life of limitation. But here is the truth, the undeniable truth that can transform the course of your life. You are not a victim of life. You are a creator of life. That shift alone is the difference between living in fear and living in freedom, between being trapped in the past and building the future, between survival and greatness. Think about it. If you keep believing that life is happening to you, then you will always feel powerless. You will always wait for something outside of you to save you, fix you, or rescue you. You'll blame the government, your boss, your parents, your partner, the economy, the weather, anything and everything. And as long as you do that, you will never truly claim your own power. But the moment you decide that life is happening for you, the moment you realize that you are the one writing the script, the one holding the pen, the one who gets to shape the story, everything changes. That's the mindset shift from victim to creator, and it is the foundation of every transformation that has ever happened in history. When you see yourself as the creator, obstacles stop being excuses and start becoming opportunities. You stop saying, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? How can I use this? How is this shaping me into who I need to become? Suddenly, every challenge becomes a classroom, every failure becomes feedback, and every setback becomes a setup for the next level of your life. The energy shifts because you are no longer powerless, you are powerful. You are no longer waiting for change, you are creating change. You are no longer stuck in the past, you are moving forward with intention now. Some people resist this shift because they are addicted to their story. Being a victim gives them a strange sense of comfort because it means they don't have to take responsibility. If it's always someone else's fault, then they don't have to step up. They don't have to risk failure. They don't have to put themselves out there. But that comfort is a trap, and it is robbing them of the life they were born to live. The truth is, taking ownership is not a burden, it is freedom. When you accept that you are the creator, you take back control of your destiny. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for luck. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You realize that the power has always been inside of you. Imagine this: two people lose their jobs on the same day. One person says, "Why me? This is unfair. Life is against me." They sink into despair. They focus on the loss. They see no way forward, and they spend months stuck in blame and resentment. The other person, facing the same situation, says, "This is tough, but maybe this is life pushing me to grow. Maybe this is the chance I needed to finally start that business, learn that skill, or step into something greater." Same situation, same pain, same loss, but two completely different outcomes, all because of mindset. One person chose to be a victim. The other chose to be a creator. And that choice determines everything. The same principle applies to every area of life: your health, your relationships, your finances, your career, your sense of purpose. If you see yourself as a victim, you will always find reasons to stay stuck. But if you step into the identity of a creator, you will always find ways to move forward. A victim asks, "What can I get?" A creator asks, "What can I give? What can I build? What can I create out of what I have right now?" And that shift opens doors you never even knew existed. This shift is not about ignoring reality or pretending that pain doesn't exist. Bad things happen. Life hits hard. People betray you. Circumstances break you. Tragedies shake you. But even in those moments, you still get to choose how you respond. You don't control what happens to you, but you control what you make of it. You don't choose the storm, but you choose whether you collapse under it or rise through it. That choice, that mindset is what separates the powerless from the powerful. And the truth is, some of the most successful, fulfilled, and unstoppable people in history were not the ones who had perfect lives. They were the ones who had the courage to stop being victims of their story and become creators of a new one. When you embody this mindset, your language changes, your energy changes, your actions change. You no longer say, "I can't." You start saying, "I will." You stop saying, "I have no control." You start saying, "I always have a choice." You stop waiting for someone to hand you opportunity. You start creating opportunity with your own hands, your own ideas, your own relentless drive. And because you shift your inner state, the external world begins to shift too. People respond differently to you. Opportunities appear where you thought there were none. And what once seemed impossible suddenly becomes inevitable. This is not just theory. This is life in action. Look around and you will see the evidence. People who came from nothing and built empires. People who faced tragedy and found purpose. People who endured heartbreak and discovered strength. They didn't do it because life was easier for them. They did it because they made the shift. They decided they were creators, not victims. They took responsibility for their mindset, their choices, their future. And because of that, they changed everything. And you have the same power within you right now, waiting to be claimed. Pain is one of the greatest teachers you will ever encounter, yet most people spend their entire lives running from it, numbing it, avoiding it, or resenting it. They see pain as punishment, as if life is out to get them, as if the universe has singled them out to suffer. And in that belief, they miss the truth that pain is not here to destroy you. It is here to shape you. The moments of struggle, the nights of doubt, the times when everything feels like it is falling apart, those are the very moments that prepare you for the strength, the resilience, and the vision you will need to step into the next level of your life. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the ally you didn't know you needed. Think about your life right now. Every strength you have was born from a challenge you faced. Every ounce of resilience you carry came from moments where you thought you couldn't go on, but you did anyway. Every breakthrough you've experienced came after a season of discomfort, maybe even heartbreak, and yet here you are. Pain forged the courage, the patience, the grit, and the clarity you now possess. Without the struggle, without the suffering, without the setbacks, you would not be who you are today. The scars you carry are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that you survived, you learned, and you grew stronger than the storm that tried to break you. Most people see pain and immediately associate it with failure. But failure is not the end. Failure is feedback. The pain of failure teaches you what doesn't work, what needs to change, and what level of discipline, focus, or innovation is required to move forward. If you remove failure from your journey, you remove wisdom. If you remove discomfort, you remove growth. Growth lives outside of comfort, and pain is the signal that you are stretching beyond the familiar, reaching into the unknown, and building a version of yourself that is more capable than the one before. Imagine someone who wants to build strength in their body. They walk into a gym, they pick up the weights, And they expect to feel no discomfort. They expect growth without resistance, progress without strain. That person will never grow. It is the resistance of the weight that creates strength. It is the tearing of the muscle fibers that allows them to rebuild stronger. The discomfort in that process is not punishment, it is progress. The same is true in life. Every challenge is resistance. Every hardship is a weight. And the very act of pushing through that resistance builds a stronger version of you. Without it, you remain fragile, untested, unprepared for what you say you want. There are people who have turned their deepest pain into their greatest power. Someone who was abandoned as a child turns that experience into a mission to help others feel seen and loved. Someone who lost everything financially uses that pain to build wisdom and discipline that makes them unstoppable in business. Someone who was betrayed in a relationship turns that heartbreak into a deeper standard for love, respect, and commitment. Over and over again, you see the same pattern. What once felt like the end becomes the very foundation for a new beginning. The pain that felt unbearable in the moment becomes the very source of strength that carries them into greatness. The problem is not the pain itself. The problem is the meaning you attach to it. If you believe pain means you are cursed, unlucky, or broken, then pain will destroy you. But if you believe pain means you are being stretched, tested, and prepared, then pain will empower you. The meaning creates the outcome. The same experience can break one person and build another, all depending on the interpretation. One says, "This is happening to me," while the other says, "This is happening for me." That simple shift transforms suffering into strength, struggle into strategy, wounds into wisdom. There is a certain alchemy in pain. It has the ability to transform ordinary people into extraordinary leaders, dreamers into doers, wanderers into warriors. When you embrace it instead of run from it, you discover that inside every painful moment is a seed of possibility. The pain of rejection can plant the seed of self-worth. The pain of loss can plant the seed of gratitude for what remains. The pain of failure can plant the seed of determination to rise again. The key is not to curse the pain, but to search for the gift inside it, because it is always there if you are willing to think back to the most difficult moment of your life. Maybe it was the loss of someone you loved. Maybe it was the failure of something you poured yourself into. Maybe it was a season where everything seemed to fall apart. At the time, it felt unbearable, and you may have even questioned whether you would make it through. But looking back now, can you see how it shaped you? Can you see how it carved a new strength inside of you? Can you see how it changed your perspective? How it made you appreciate things differently? How it gave you wisdom you could never have learned from a book or a seminar? That is the power of pain. It teaches you lessons no comfort zone ever could. The people who achieve greatness are not the ones who avoid pain. They are the ones who embrace it, learn from it, and use it as fuel. They know that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. They know that while they cannot always control what happens, they can always control how they interpret it and how they respond. They take the raw energy of pain and channel it into action, into creativity, into vision, into relentless drive. They refuse to let pain make them bitter, so they allow it to make them better. They use it as a reminder of how strong they are, how resilient they can be, and how limitless their potential truly is. The truth is that every single one of us will face pain. There is no life without it. The difference is whether you let it crush you or craft you, whether you let it define you or refine you, whether you let it close your heart or open your soul. Pain is inevitable, but what you do with it is a choice. And when you choose to see pain not as punishment, but as preparation, you unlock a level of power that nothing can take away from you. One of the greatest lies people believe is that success belongs only to those who have the most money, the best connections, the fanciest degrees, or the perfect timing. They think resources are the determining factor, and if they don't have them, they can't win. But the truth is, success has never been about resources. It has always been about resourcefulness. How many stories do you know of people who started with nothing, no capital, no support, no safety net, and yet they built empires, they created movements, they changed the world? They did it not because they had everything handed to them, but because they decided to become resourceful, to use whatever they had in their hands and multiply it to find a way when others only saw dead ends. Resourcefulness is the ultimate skill, because resources come and go, but the ability to adapt, to create, to innovate, to solve problems, to see possibility where others see limitation, that is what determines whether you rise or stay stuck. Think about it. If money was the only answer, every rich person would be fulfilled, and we know that isn't true. If education alone was the answer, every degree holder would be thriving, but many are not. If connections were the answer, everyone who knows someone powerful would be living their dream, but countless are still lost. The real difference is in the mindset of resourcefulness, the willingness to ask, How can I make this work with what I've got? What else can I try? Who else can I serve? What skill can I build right now that will open new doors? When you tap into resourcefulness, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop saying, I'll start when I get the money, or I'll begin when someone believes in me, or I'll act when the timing is right. You realize that the only time is now, and the only permission you need is your own. Every great breakthrough started with someone who looked around at limited options and decided to create something from nothing. A young inventor in a garage with scraps builds technology that changes the world. An entrepreneur with no investors learns to sell, persuade, and market until opportunities begin to multiply. A single parent with little time and money figures out how to build a business in the cracks of the day until it grows into a legacy for their family. What they lacked in resources, they made up for in creativity, persistence, and imagination. Resourcefulness is about seeing possibility others miss because they are too focused on limitations. Where one person sees a lack of money, a resourceful mind sees an opportunity to trade value, to learn a new skill, to partner with someone, to use sweat equity instead of cash. Where one person sees a lack of connections, a resourceful mind sees an opportunity to build relationships, to network relentlessly, to create value so powerful that people are drawn to them. Where one person sees a lack of experience, a resourceful mind sees a chance to learn to experiment, to fail forward until they master what others are too afraid to even attempt. It's not about what you don't have. It's about what you do with what you do have. Think about some of the most remarkable people in history. Innovators, leaders, artists, visionaries, they didn't begin with an abundance of resources. Many started with nothing but a vision, a burning desire, and an unshakable commitment to figure it out. They didn't have guarantees. They didn't have investors. They didn't have all the answers. What they had was the decision to keep moving, keep adapting, keep finding a way forward no matter what. That's resourcefulness in action. That's the mindset that separates those who make excuses from those who make history, and it's not just about money or business. Resourcefulness applies to every area of life. In relationships, it's not about waiting for the perfect partner to magically appear. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts deep love by giving love, by growing, by showing up with presence and commitment. In health, it's not about having access to the best equipment or trainers. It's about doing what you can with what you have, choosing discipline over excuses, taking small daily steps until they compound into transformation. In purpose, it's not about waiting for clarity to strike. It's about experimenting, exploring, serving, creating until your mission reveals itself. There's a story about two people given the same challenge with almost no resources. One person throws their hands up and says, I can't do this. It's impossible without the right tools, without the right help, without more money. The other person looks at the same situation and says, all right, what do I have? How can I use it differently? Who do I know that might know someone? What angle hasn't been tried yet? Guess who wins? The one who decided to be resourceful. The one who turned limitations into leverage. The one who stopped waiting for the perfect set of circumstances and chose to create their own advantage. Here's the secret: resourcefulness multiplies resources. When you are resourceful, you attract opportunities, you build relationships, you gain experience, you develop skills, and all of those things eventually bring you the resources you thought you lacked in the beginning. But the opposite is not true. If you are given resources without resourcefulness, you will waste them. How many people win the lottery and end up broke within years because they lack the mindset to handle wealth? How many people inherit money and lose it because they never learned to build it themselves? Without resourcefulness, resources mean nothing. With resourcefulness, even the smallest opportunity can become the seed of something extraordinary. This is why the mindset shift toward resourcefulness is so vital. It makes you unstoppable because no matter what happens, no matter what is taken away, you always have yourself, your creativity, your adaptability, your drive, and that is more powerful than any external advantage. When you face setbacks, instead of saying, I can't, you say, how can I? When doors close, instead of saying, it's over, you say, where's the window? When you don't know the answer, instead of quitting, you say, what can I learn right now? That kind of thinking creates momentum, and momentum creates breakthroughs. Resourcefulness also builds resilience, because every time you find a way through without the obvious resources, you prove to yourself that you are capable, that you can handle adversity, that you can solve problems. Each victory, no matter how small, becomes a reference point that fuels confidence. Over time, you stop fearing obstacles because you've trained yourself to turn them into opportunities. You stop seeing lack as loss because you know how to create abundance. You stop being dependent on the external and start depending on your own internal power. The truth is, The people who win are not the ones who have the most given to them, but the ones who take whatever they have and squeeze every drop of possibility from it. They turn a little into a lot. They turn rejection into redirection. They turn closed doors into new paths. They turn what others call impossible into inevitable. That is resourcefulness. And it is the difference between staying stuck and breaking through to the life you were meant to live. There comes a point in every person's life when they realize that the results they're living with are not because of what they deserve, but because of what they tolerate. The standards you hold for yourself determine the quality of your life. If your standard is to settle for good enough, you'll never push for great. If your standard is to just get by, you'll never break through. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. And when you finally decide to raise those standards, when you stop tolerating mediocrity, when you stop making excuses for why you're not where you want to be, everything in your life begins to shift. Most people set goals like wishes. They say, I want to be healthier. I want to make more money. I want better relationships, but deep down, they don't make those things a must. They treat them like preferences, like something that would be nice to have if circumstances allow. But when you raise your standards, you stop hoping and you start demanding from yourself. It's no longer, I'd like to be healthy. I will never again settle for treating my body with neglect. It's no longer, I want to make more money. It's, I refuse to live paycheck to paycheck and I would have over, it takes create abundance. It's no longer, I have a good relationship. It's, I want to never again settle being disrespected or under raising your standards. It creates power of raising yours to line you refuse to cross. And from that moment forward, your life can never be the same. Think about it. Every major breakthrough you've ever had came from the moment you got fed up with tolerating less than you deserved. The moment you said, enough is enough. I'm not living like this anymore. That moment when your desire collided with a new decision and you created a standard that elevated everything around it. The reason most people stay stuck is not because they lack ability. It's because they tolerate too much. They tolerate excuses. They tolerate procrastination. They tolerate unhealthy habits. They tolerate toxic relationships. And as long as they tolerate, nothing changes. But when you raise the bar, when you decide that average is no longer acceptable, your actions rise to meet that standard. Raising your standards is not about perfection. It's about commitment. It's about deciding what you will no longer accept in your life. It's about saying, this is the new normal for me, and then aligning your behavior with that new normal every single day. It's about moving from a place of should to a place of must. Most people live in the land of should. I should exercise more. I should eat better. I should spend more time with my family. I should start that business. But should changes nothing. When it becomes a must, when you raise your standard so high that anything less is unacceptable, that's when change happens. There are countless examples of people who transformed their lives simply because they raised their standards. Someone who decided they would no longer tolerate being out of shape and completely changed their health. Someone who decided they would no longer tolerate living paycheck to paycheck and built a business or career that gave them freedom. Someone who decided they would no longer tolerate toxic relationships and found the strength to walk away, creating space for something better. The transformation didn't come because the world around them suddenly shifted. It came because their inner world shifted, their standards rose, and everything else adjusted to meet them. The fascinating thing is that when you raise your standards, you naturally attract people, opportunities, and experiences that match them. If you raise your standard in relationships, you stop accepting half-hearted love, and suddenly people who align with your values show up. If you raise your standard in business, you stop cutting corners, you stop tolerating mediocrity, and suddenly higher level opportunities begin to appear. The universe responds to the level of your standards, but it doesn't reward what you want. It rewards what you demand from yourself consistently. Some people fear raising their standards because they think it will make life harder, but the truth is it makes life better. Living below your potential is exhausting. Settling for less drains you. Accepting mediocrity robs you of joy. When you raise your standards, you actually create more energy, more passion, more fulfillment, because you're finally aligned with the life you know deep down you're meant to live. You stop fighting against yourself. You stop living in quiet frustration, and you start living with purpose and clarity. And yes, raising your standards requires more from you, but it also gives more to you in return. Raising your standards also requires you to change your environment, because the people around you will always reflect what you tolerate. If you're surrounded by people who settle, who make excuses, who play small, it becomes easier for you to do the same. But when you raise your standards, you naturally begin to distance yourself from people who pull you down and surround yourself with people who lift you up. It doesn't mean you stop loving those people. It just means you refuse to let their standards define your destiny. You create an environment that matches the level you want to play at, and that environment reinforces the higher standard. You've chosen every person who has achieved greatness has a story of the moment they raised their standards. They decided they would no longer accept being broke. So they worked day and night until they built wealth. They decided they would no longer accept mediocrity in their craft, so they practiced, refined, and mastered until they became the best. They decided they would no longer accept fear as their master, so they leaned into discomfort until courage became their new standard. That decision to raise the bar is what set them apart from everyone else who kept living by excuses. It's important to understand that raising your standards is not a one-time event. It is a continual process. Every time you hit a new level, you will feel the pull of comfort, the temptation to settle, the voice that says, this is good enough. But if you want to keep growing, you have to keep raising the bar. You have to refuse to let your old standards limit your new potential. Growth is about continually demanding more from yourself, not in a way that burns you out, but in a way that pulls the best from you. Because when you live with higher standards, you create a ripple effect that inspires everyone around you to raise theirs as well. The shift happens the moment you decide to stop accepting less than what you know you're capable of. The moment you stop making excuses for why you haven't stepped up. The moment you stop lowering the bar to fit your comfort zone and instead raise it to match your true potential. From that point forward, your identity changes, your habits change, your results change, and once you taste life at a higher standard, you'll never want to go back to the old one again. Too many people live their lives trapped in the illusion that their past dictates their future. They look at the mistakes they've made, the failures they've experienced, the pain they've endured, and they convince themselves that this is who they are now, that nothing will ever change, that their best days are behind them. They allow the weight of yesterday to anchor them to the same patterns, the same fears, the same limitations, and because they believe the past equals the future, they keep reliving the same story year after year. But the truth is simple and powerful. Your past does not equal your future unless you choose to let it. The moment you decide to break free from the chains of your past, the moment you refuse to be defined by what happened to you, the moment you realize that you are the author of what comes next, everything changes. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. It is a lesson, not a life sentence. It is a part of your story, but it is not the end of it. Every failure you've experienced has given you feedback. Every heartbreak has given you perspective. Every disappointment has given you wisdom. The danger is not in having a past filled with pain or mistakes. The danger is in making the mistake of believing that those experiences define who you are forever. You are not your failures. You are not your losses. You are not your regrets. You are the person who learned from them, who grew from them, who survived them, and who now has the chance to use them as fuel for what comes next. Think about it. History is full of people who came from broken pasts, from poverty, from addiction, from failure, from rejection, from trauma, and yet they rose above it all to create lives of greatness, impact, and contribution. If their past had truly determined their future, none of them would have succeeded. But they understood something powerful, that while you cannot rewrite yesterday, you can always decide what today and tomorrow will look like. They refused to carry the weight of who they used to be into who they were becoming. They made a decision to stop looking backward and to start focusing forward. What keeps so many people stuck is the story they keep telling themselves about their past. They say things like, I've always been this way, or I've tried before and failed, so why try again? Or this is just who I am. But those are not truths. Those are stories. And stories can be rewritten. The meaning you attach to your past is what gives it power over you. If you see your past as proof that you're not enough, it will paralyze you. But if you see your past as preparation, as a series of lessons designed to make you stronger, then it becomes the very thing that empowers you. The same event that breaks one person can build another, not because the event was different, but because the meaning was different. There's an old saying that scars are evidence, not of what hurt you, but of what healed you. And that is the key. The scars of your past are not reminders of your weakness. They are reminders of your survival. They show that you endured, that you got back up, that you are still here. And if you are still here, it means your story is not over. It means you still have the ability to create, to change, to rise, to rewrite what comes next. You don't have to erase the past. You simply have to refuse to let it dictate the next chapter. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, how did this prepare me? What strength did this build in me? How can I use this to serve others? Because when you find meaning in your pain, when you turn your wounds into wisdom, your past becomes a source of power rather than a source of paralysis. The people who inspire the world are not those who lived perfect lives. They are those who took their broken pieces and built something beautiful out of them. The truth is, the past is over. It cannot be changed. But the future is unwritten, and every decision you make today is a stroke of the pen. Every new choice, every new habit, every new belief is shaping the story that comes next. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't have to wait for everything to line up. All you have to do is decide right now that your past does not define you, that who you were yesterday has nothing to do with who you choose to be today. That no mistake, no failure, no wound is stronger than your ability to rise. Some of the most successful people in the world failed more times than most can count. They were rejected. They were laughed at. They were told they would never make it, and yet they kept going. They didn't let their past failures define their future success. They used every setback as fuel, every rejection as redirection, every loss as motivation to rise higher. And the only difference between them and the person who stays stuck is that they refuse to let the past write their future story. They chose to write it themselves. The greatest freedom you will ever experience is the freedom to decide that your past no longer controls you, to take the lessons, release the pain, and move forward with clarity and strength, to stop reliving the same patterns and start creating new ones, to stop letting the old version of yourself dictate what the new version can become. That decision is available to you in every moment, no matter how heavy your past has been, no matter how many times you've fallen, no matter how many regrets you carry. The past is unchangeable, but the future is unlimited, and it is in your hands. Your past can serve you, but only if you let it. It can teach you discipline. It can teach you resilience. It can teach you compassion. It can teach you what not to do, but it should never imprison you. The chains are imaginary, built by stories and beliefs you've held onto for too long. And the moment you decide to let go of those stories, the moment you choose to see your past not as a prison, but as a classroom, you unlock the ability to create a future that looks nothing like what came before. You become free to step into possibility, to embrace growth, to live with passion, to pursue greatness without hesitation. The future does not care about your past. It only cares about what you choose to do today. It only responds to the standard you set, the actions you take, the mindset you embody. Every day is a blank page waiting to be written, and the question is not whether your past has power over you. The question is whether you will keep handing it the pen. The moment you take the pen back, the moment you take ownership of your story, the moment you decide to define yourself not by where you've been, but by where you're going, you create a shift that changes everything